The first thing that shattered wasn't the old wooden chair. It was the wall around a lonely man's heart. When my elderly neighbor asked me to carry one worn-out chair across the yard, I assumed she needed help preparing for guests. I had no idea that the chair wasn't for someone else. It was waiting for me. And when she quietly told me it was my seat at dinner, after years of believing nobody would ever save a place for me again, every excuse I had ever made for staying alone collapsed in an instant. If you believe kindness can heal invisible wounds, forgiveness can rebuild broken families, hope can arrive when you least expect it, and second chances are always worth giving, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our community. For nearly 5 years, Rowan Mercer lived in the smallest house on a quiet suburban street where everyone knew one another's routines but rarely crossed beyond polite waves. Every morning looked almost identical. He watered the small patch of flowers his late wife had planted years before, picked up the newspaper from the porch, fixed the squeaky mailbox that never stayed closed, and spent the afternoon repairing old furniture in his garage. People often admired his craftsmanship, but few noticed that the garage was the only place where laughter had once echoed before silence became the loudest sound in his life. His wife, Meredith, had filled every room with warmth until illness carried her away far too soon. Their daughter had drifted across the country after disagreements that neither side ever found the courage to mend. Phone calls slowly disappeared. Holiday cards stopped arriving. Rowan convinced himself that people naturally moved on and that expecting anything different only guaranteed disappointment. He became an expert at pretending solitude was a choice instead of a burden. Across the street lived Eleanor Whitmore, a retired elementary school teacher whose gentle smile somehow survived decades of personal hardship. She had buried her husband years earlier and understood the language of quiet grief better than most people understood ordinary conversation. She noticed details others overlooked. She saw when Rowan's porch light bulb stayed burned out for weeks because nobody visited after sunset. She noticed the single grocery bag he carried every Tuesday, always filled with just enough food for one person. She noticed that every holiday decoration appeared for exactly one day before disappearing again, as though hope itself embarrassed him. Eleanor never forced friendship. Instead, she offered tiny moments of kindness that required no obligation. Sometimes she left fresh tomatoes from her garden on his porch. Sometimes she asked him to tighten a loose cabinet hinge or repair an old rocking chair. Rowan always accepted the work but politely declined every invitation for coffee or lunch. He believed keeping people at arm's length protected both them and himself from future heartbreak. As summer settled over the neighborhood, Eleanor began organizing a daytime gathering in her backyard. It wasn't a birthday or an anniversary. It wasn't even advertised as a celebration. She simply believed people needed more reasons to sit together around one table before life stole those opportunities away. Neighbors volunteered homemade pies, fresh bread, grilled vegetables, and lemonade. Folding tables appeared beneath the shade of 2 enormous maple trees. Children chased one another through the grass while adults carried decorations across the lawn. Laughter floated through the warm afternoon air, drifting toward Rowan's open garage. He watched from a distance while sanding the armrest of an antique chair. Every cheerful sound reminded him that invitations belonged to people whose lives still felt connected. He told himself he preferred the peaceful rhythm of his work. Just before noon, Eleanor walked slowly across the street carrying a faded wooden chair with one loose leg. She smiled as though she had come only to borrow his skills. She asked if he could carry the chair back to her yard because she was afraid it might fall apart before reaching the table. Rowan wiped the dust from his hands, lifted the surprisingly light chair, and followed her without asking questions. He expected to leave it beside the others and quietly return home before anyone noticed him. As they reached the backyard, he saw a long dining table already surrounded by carefully arranged seats. Families chatted while setting plates in front of empty chairs. There wasn't a single space left. He gently placed the worn chair near the fence and apologized that he should get out of everyone's way. Eleanor looked at him with the same patient expression she had worn while teaching generations of children who doubted themselves. She quietly explained that the chair wasn't extra furniture. It belonged at the table. It was his seat. She had simply needed someone she trusted enough to carry it because she wanted him to be the one who placed it there. For several seconds Rowan couldn't speak. No one had intentionally saved him a place at a dinner table since Meredith passed away. He had forgotten how deeply such a simple gesture could reach. The neighbors looked up one by one, smiling naturally instead of staring awkwardly. Nobody acted as though Eleanor had made a mistake. They simply waited for Rowan to join them. His instincts begged him to leave before emotions overwhelmed him. Years of isolation whispered that he didn't belong. But another voice, quieter and almost forgotten, reminded him what it felt like to be welcomed without earning it. He sat down. Conversation flowed around him with surprising ease. Children proudly showed him drawings from school. A retired firefighter asked about woodworking techniques. A young couple admired the bench Rowan had repaired months earlier. Nobody treated him like a lonely widower who needed charity. They treated him like someone whose presence genuinely mattered. As lunch continued beneath the bright afternoon sun, Rowan found himself laughing at stories that would have barely earned a smile a week earlier. He shared memories of restoring old furniture with Meredith decades ago, describing how she always claimed every chair carried the memories of the families who once gathered around it. The table grew unusually quiet, not from discomfort but from respect. Everyone understood that love never truly disappeared when someone spoke about it with gratitude instead of bitterness. Later that afternoon, Eleanor quietly admitted that she had recognized loneliness because she had lived through it herself. After losing her husband, she spent nearly 3 years declining every invitation she received. She finally realized that grief became heavier when carried alone. She promised herself she would never let someone nearby disappear behind closed curtains if a simple act of kindness could reach them first. Her words settled deeply inside Rowan. For the first time, he realized people hadn't ignored him over the years. He had become so determined not to inconvenience anyone that he unknowingly built walls nobody felt permitted to cross. The weeks that followed changed the neighborhood in small but remarkable ways. Rowan began leaving his garage door open while working so people felt welcome to stop and chat. Children visited after school to learn how to sand wood safely and repair simple furniture. Young homeowners asked for advice instead of replacing family heirlooms. Retirees gathered on sunny afternoons to swap stories over lemonade while Rowan demonstrated restoration techniques. His house slowly transformed from the quietest home on the street into one filled with conversation and purpose. One crisp afternoon during another neighborhood gathering, a familiar car pulled into his driveway. Rowan's heart nearly stopped when he recognized his daughter, Clara, stepping out holding a small envelope. Years had etched worry across both their faces. Neither knew exactly how to bridge the distance that silence had created. Clara confessed that she had heard about Rowan through social media after one of the neighbors posted photographs of the woodworking afternoons. She had stared at those smiling pictures for days before realizing her father looked happier surrounded by neighbors than he had during their final painful conversation years earlier. She admitted that pride had kept her away just as much as his silence had. Rowan felt every rehearsed apology disappear. He simply embraced her with tears neither of them tried to hide. The neighbors quietly continued arranging tables nearby, respectfully pretending not to notice while secretly celebrating the reunion that everyone had hoped might happen. That afternoon another chair was added beside Rowan's. Not because someone expected perfection. Not because every painful memory had vanished. But because forgiveness always begins by making room for someone again. As seasons changed, the old chair Eleanor had asked Rowan to carry remained part of every neighborhood meal. It was repaired carefully, polished gently, yet intentionally left with one visible scratch across its backrest. Rowan often touched that mark before sitting down, remembering the day he learned that broken things could still belong at beautiful tables. Visitors frequently asked why the scratched chair held such an honored place. The answer never changed. Because every family, whether connected by blood or by kindness, needs one seat that reminds everyone nobody should eat alone if there is room for one more. If you've ever felt forgotten, overlooked, or convinced there was no place left for you, remember that sometimes the invitation you've been waiting for begins with something as simple as carrying one ordinary chair. Hope often arrives disguised as the smallest request, and love has a remarkable way of finding those who have almost stopped looking for it. Before we finish, please leave a meaningful comment telling us about a time when someone's kindness changed your life, or share one way you hope to make another person feel included this week. Your words may become the encouragement someone else desperately needs. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May we all remember that the greatest gift we can offer another person is not a perfect meal, an expensive present, or flawless words. Sometimes it is simply saving them a seat, reminding them they are seen, they are wanted, and they will always have a place where they belong.